right, we are back with a special quarantine edition of The Journey of Brandon Thomas, and we have Don Raven with us here today. So we're going to be asking Don some questions. And yeah, man, I'm super excited. So this podcast is about giving people their roses while they're here to smell them. I think that I titled this thing, or I had a battle with the name of it, and I kind of do this at the beginning of every podcast. But I had a battle with the name of it because I wanted to find a platform where we could appreciate people in the middle of their journey. A lot of times you don't really get to tell your story or like get the love you deserve until you get to this mountaintop. But I think it's like there's so many things that you've conquered to get to this space, you know, wherever it is, or if it is a mountaintop for you, that there needs to be a place for it. The in-between stories, you know, so that's why I made the journey. As we're on our journey, and I never tell anybody the questions that I'm going to ask them because I like to see the organicness of the answers. So what are, in this particular moment, the top 3 best moments of your life?
Woo.
Right? Slightly overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. But you know, I'm gonna answer these instinctively. Okay. So I'm gonna let my heart lead. First thing that comes to my heart is definitely my first transplant. Okay. Like I've already received 1 kidney transplant, one of the biggest moments of my life. From a physical perspective, obviously, it's a major surgery, but also from a mental aspect. So that have to be 1. 2, when I scored 53 points against Virginia. Okay, I had to say it.
Okay. You like whispered it, but it was like a thing. Okay, all right. So I want to keep the third. Do you know what the third one is in your mind?
The third one.
Just gather it, okay?
Yeah.
All right, boom. So we're gonna go back to number 1. So you had a kidney transplant. What is that like being and just help me with the words here. Being like a normal girl, a regular girl, a pretty girl, whatever girl you are, and like a kidney like not working. Like, is that crazy? Like
for me, yeah, absolutely. When you look at people who are similar to you in age, in whatever demographic you want to look at,
right?
And that's something that they're not dealing with.
Totally.
So for me, obviously, because I'm experiencing my own life, and I can look at somebody who's not experiencing life as I am, and I could look at them and be like, yo, this is unfair. Right. From a health standpoint, like I am young. I'm still, you know, I've just turned 30 last year. Right. So I'm 30 years old, and I've been experiencing this for 10 years now. So I got diagnosed at 21. Wow. And it's like, it's unfair. But as I've grown older and more understanding of life in general, I think I've realized that this is my journey, and it's no bigger or greater or less than the next person's journey, because they're experiencing something in their own reality that I may not even be aware of. If you didn't really know me 3 years prior to today, you probably wouldn't have known this about me, because I kept it so secret. I kept it away from so many people, something I hid from because it was a level of shame that came with it, just because people see you as this healthy individual, and in all reality, you're not that. And it's like, I want to be that, but I'm not, you know? Right.
Totally. And I think that it's like, it's really cool. And kind of to go back to my statement, like, I don't think that there is like a certain person that looks like this thing, but I think it's like, sometimes I have the saying where I'm like, you know, you're not too pretty to die. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where it's like, there's nobody exempt from this. And like, these types of things like happen to us all. And I think it's like, it's amazing, because when I first met you, I had no idea, you know what I mean, that this was going on. And what ended up happening is that Don is a fantastic basketball player. We're going to get into that in 2 seconds. And like when I saw her, I was like this ain't like regular, like put the ball in the hole. Like the energy was a little bit different. So what do we do in 2020, 2019, 2018? We just go straight to Google. I don't need to be guessing around.
True, really.
So boom, I hit the Google, and then I'm like, you see a bunch of accolades, then you see this other story, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I would have never known that this is like something that you're going through. And I think is a compliment to the way you handle it with such grace. And again, it's not like, it's not a normal thing, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And I use the word normal, not normal to me, but you know, there's a bunch of people that are, dealing with this type of stuff and are soldiers because
exactly.
Like exactly. Beyond amazing. Yeah, well, boom. Okay, perfect. We're gonna move on to number 2. Let's segue into. So Virginia, do you go to Virginia or Virginia come to you for this piece?
So Virginia came to me.
Oh, they pulled up. They thought they was about to do something, huh?
Yeah, Virginia came to me. So I went to school at James Madison University, which is in the state of Virginia.
Oh.
And one of the biggest collegiate programs in the state of Virginia is the University of Virginia. Which so happens to be 45 minutes away from my school. So very close. And us being a mid-major and them being like a major BCS school, to schedule them just, it boosts our RPI ratings. It gives us, at the end of the season, an advantage into an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament. So scheduling those types of schools are like important. Right. Especially because they come in with this sense of arrogance, like, oh, you're mid-major, we're BCS, we're gonna beat your ass. Yeah. Can I cuss?
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Hell yeah, you can cuss. It's my
okay, I'm not a big cusser or anything, but just wanting to
Let's find out. Go ahead, Dawn. You can.
Yeah. So they come to the school, and at this point, I am What was this? When did this happen? Was this my senior year? It was my senior year, because we went to them my junior year. We went to them, beat them my junior year. And so they had signed on for a 2-year deal with us. But anyways, they came to our, home trying to I guess, revenge. They wanted the revenge of beating us since we beat them at home. And I went off. So that was a major moment for me. It's like my career high, against a great school.
Right.
And down this stretch, it was just a series. I just hit 7 to 10 straight that took us from being down to up, and we ended up winning the game. It was just electric in that building.
So you scored 53 and 1.
I'm sorry, I scored 53 in high school. I scored 42 against UVA.
Minus 42. Okay.
Yeah, it was 42.
Oh, just 42. Whatever.
My career high in high school was 53. Sorry.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Dang. Do you remember the final score to the game? You scored 42?
I think the score was 83-81. It came down to a last possession that they could have tied the game, and they missed a chippy right at the basket, and we ended up winning by 2.
Because there's some suckers. That's what's up. I've never scored 42 anythings. Did you feel was it out of body? Do you remember it all, or was it just kind of you were just in a zone and you're like, let's just let it fly?
There's this picture of me that's on the internet. If you Googled me, it probably showed up.
Okay.
There's this photo where I'm flexing, I'm huge. And I had just hit my chest, right? I hit a 3 that put us up. And I don't do stuff like this, but this was an outer body experience where I went to the crowd, hit my chest real masculine and I'm like, let's go. And I flexed and I just looked huge. It was just intense. But yeah, that was an outer body experience. That whole game, it's crazy. It was as long ago as it was, but such an experience I'll never forget. My whole family was in the building too. My mom, my dad, and my brother came from 9.5 hours out of town and saw that game in person. It was just insane.
That's really where it's at. Wow, to have the family there. Okay, what do we got for number 3?
For number 3, It had to be moving to LA.
Mm-hmm. So
That
what brought you to LA?
So, I mean, I talked about it a lot when I was in college and when I was playing basketball, but I've always dreamed of being an actress.
Mm.
Actually, the story starts when I was 12 years old, and we were living in Tennessee at the time, but we would come out every pilot season and I would audition since I was 12 years old.
Wow.
Until I became 16, and then my parents made me decide, like, are we going to move out to California and pursue this, or are you going to play basketball? Basketball is a family sport. Everybody in my family has gotten free college education off of basketball.
Wow.
So it's just kind of like a blood sport for us.
Right, totally.
And after I got my transplant, I was supposed to head back overseas. I had signed a contract, and then I just took the whole circumstance as an opportunity to pursue that dream again.
Mm.
So I could still be playing basketball. Like, one of my friends who's an agent, he was like, Dawn, you left so much money on the table with basketball. And I probably did. And being a struggling artist can sometimes mentally be like, ugh, crap, but
Right.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy in what I'm pursuing. I feel more full. It's a journey, and I understand that to get to any level of success, you have to build yourself up. It's like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. Once you're a senior, you're the shit. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
But you have to go through that journey. And so moving to LA was a huge step for me because I left such a sound space for me, something I was very secure in financially, but also mentally. I knew what I could do in basketball.
Right.
And to LA is just like, it just opened my mind to the possibilities of life. Like, I can go from one end of the spectrum to the next. Two totally different fields in some ways, but very much so alike in others, and become a totally different person.
Question. So when you come to LA, is it refreshing for people to not know you as Dawn the basketball player? That feeling.
It's weird because I've been known that like almost all my life.
Oh, right. Yeah.
All my life. And also, when you know how it works, like, usually the people who know you, it's more regional than it is so like countrywide.
Right.
Like, I'm also in a very different place that I even played basketball. So people aren't even really aware of me as a basketball player out here.
Right.
Unless you really paid attention to women's basketball, which LA has so much other stuff going on. People don't really pay attention to college women's basketball.
Right.
So it was a different experience for me. I'm so used to going into any room and somebody knowing who I am. In LA, I'm just a small fish in a big pool.
All right, so I've experienced a lot of athletes with another situation that I'm a part of, where it's like their identity is so much tied into their sport that once they stop playing their sport, there is a duration of time where they have to find a new title or find a new way to identify themselves. Did you go through that transitioning from?
Yeah, and that's why when you introduced me, you call me Dawn Raven, and it's why I did that. Like, my stage name is Dawn Raven, but my legal name is Dawn Evans. And I changed it because it's so connected to basketball.
Wow.
That I wanted people to take me seriously as an artist. I didn't want them to say, this is Dawn Evans, a basketball player, converted post-retirement to an artist. No, I've loved this. I've loved this since I can remember, before I even loved basketball. So I wanted to do its due diligence. I didn't want it to be a lingering after effect of basketball. I wanted it to be like, okay, there's this woman emerging. Who is she? Dawn Raven. Who we look up Dawn Raven, we see nothing. We don't know her.
Right.
So for me, I was fully prepared to separate the two,
Yeah.
But also there is this weird feeling of, wow, who am I though? Who is Dawn Raven? Like, who do I really represent outside of basketball? So, you know.
Have you answered that question yet?
Um, I haven't, honestly. I think, you know, during this time of quarantine and me prepping for my second transplant, I've really been able to get rid of the cloudy mirrors and look at myself to see what is my legacy going to be outside of basketball. That's a big part of me. I'm not going to just throw that away. I've,
Right.
you know, invested so much of my time and love and energy and blood into that. But ultimately, I don't want to just be known as Dawn the basketball player. I want people to really understand me as an artist and who I am outside of athletics, you know?
Totally. And again, I've dealt with a lot of players, a lot of athletes that just have a hard time transitioning into what their new thing is, you know. And again, they've been known as this thing all through the formative years of their life, you know, high school where you develop your identity, college you develop your identity, and it is this and this and this and this. And it's like I've had the benefit of, you know, being an actor of some sort, you know, since high school, so I haven't really had to deal with that. But I think it's such an interesting thing to see that place where people are like really trying to sort it out, and you can't quite go this way or can't quite, you know, and you're not all the way sure. So it's interesting, and I think it's really cool to see people redefining themselves. You know, I think that's like it's a true sign of growth. You know,
Yeah.
I had a friend on here, Chantel Anderson, and we're like talking, and she's 6'7" in that range, right? Give or take an inch, right? So obviously she's a basketball player. I knew she was a basketball player. So we're like talking, and you know, no, blah blah blah. And she has figured it out in such a way that she was the number 2 pick in the WNBA draft. I had no idea. It is never referenced. She's like, well, when was I supposed to bring it up? I'm like, I don't know, but I think I will have a T-shirt that says I was the number 2.
Right.
I'm like, the number 2 like person, like 1 then 2. She's like, yep, number 2. She is the all-time leading scorer at Vanderbilt University.
Vanderbilt. Wow, Nashville, Tennessee. I didn't know she went to Vandy.
And I'm like, what? But I think all those things are really cool. But what she's doing now is so much cooler because it is now. You know what I mean? And it is what she's like transitioned into. So I think it's like really cool to see the different athletes transitioning, like the different part of the journey of the new identity of an athlete.
Absolutely. It's cool though, you know, and I love this stage of my life where I can really decide and understand myself in a way that I hadn't. You know, you can hide behind the veil of basketball and sports for so long, you know, when you're doing it, especially when it's what you've done for so long. But to pull that veil and then to understand, like, okay, now who are you as a person? It's such a revelation.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, I think so. And I think that it's a special thing to find.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this chapter of your journey, if it were a book, what would this chapter be called?
This chapter would be called Forgiveness.
Ooh.
Yeah, it would be forgiveness.
That sounds like a very good chapter. You got anything else on that, or is that just like?
Yeah, I think like I said, this self journey that I've been going on is it's been so important for me in these moments. I think I know outside of basketball, outside of acting, outside of my kidney disease, I think there's so many components that make up a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in this space of dealing with old traumas, you know, of my life that you hold on to and you act a certain way because of that.
Right.
And this is part of my self exploration is, you know, understanding that part of that is forgiving yourself and the people that hurt you, um, because it only benefits you. It has nothing to do with them, you know. And people have said that. I mean, it's in every book that I ever read and every self-help book, you know, but really understanding and committing to that forgiveness is more freeing than you can imagine, you know, once you're actually experiencing it.
Yeah, I think that there's like a growth part that is like the idea of it, right? And like the understanding of it, but the application of it,
Yeah.
you know, the execution, it's not a thing until you're executing on it. You know what I mean? Like it's not a thing until you're applying it to your life. Like you can know all kinds of things, but until you actually are putting them into place or putting them in action, like it's not really anything. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, something that you know. So I definitely have experienced a couple pages in that chapter myself. And so what's funny is like, so normally like I explain what I mean by that, and the chapter that I've been referencing up until this point is growth. But now I think that the chapter is like a little bit different. I think that the title for this chapter for me right now would be elevation.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm at a point where maybe I laid like a decent foundation on growth, and I think it is okay. So we have the machine, you know what I mean? We'll call it a car, like you know what I mean? Like we have the car. Okay, now can we get like some better seats in the car?
Mm-hmm,
Maybe
mm-hmm.
maybe we just start with a better radio, and if we can get
Yeah.
a better radio, we can have a better time in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know maybe we make this car nice enough, then we sell this whole car and we get a
Yeah.
new
Yeah, I get you. But I also think part of that is it's great to have ambition. Well, I think what I've learned is always being grateful for what I have now, but that doesn't stop me for working for greater, but really being grateful and thankful for this beat up 1960 Volvo.
reliable, reliable, reliable. No, that joke is safe too.
Yeah, aren't they?
Safe. You gonna live.
Yeah, so
Yeah. I,
having that, but also understanding like, but I really think I've been working hard for this 2019 Audi. I know it's not 2020, but this 2019 Audi is looking real nice. You know what I'm saying?
totally.
But you know, always gonna go get it. You gotta go get it. So
Totally. And that's so crazy because I think it's like a fine line, right? So like one of my biggest things is gratitude. I start my days, I have like a gratitude journal where I write down 3 things I'm grateful for every morning. um 3 things that if they happen throughout the day will make my day amazing, and then 1 positive affirmation in the morning. That's what I start the day with. You know, then I move on to my other stuff. So gratitude is like one of my things. Like if you're not grateful around me, like I'm gonna piss you off because I'm gonna be like, but what about, aren't you? Do you? You know
yeah,
what I mean? So it's like one of those things. So for me, it's been finding the things that you're like. Sometimes you can be. I'm working on this idea, right? But sometimes you can be like too grateful, where you're just like this is enough. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Which can stifle your ambition to where now I'm like, okay, like some things I just kind of like walked into like, okay, well, God, if we're gonna go, we're gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just figure it out. And I literally have just left it like, God, I'm just gonna do this, and if it's for me, let me have it. And if
Yeah,
it ain't,
yeah,
I'll be just fine with what I have. And I've been able to get into other things. And now I'm like, I do these walks in our quarantine time through the Hollywood Hills. And now I'm like house shopping. And it does not make sense, right? But the way that my faith is set up, it don't have to exactly make sense.
yeah,
And but it's just kind of been interesting just to like let let your desires go. Like what do you really want? Not like what can you see, but like what do you really want? And I think it goes back to your point about healing from traumas, where it was like, we grew up, we didn't have a lot of stuff. So to ask for anything above the minimum, or like what was like clearly possible
Yeah.
was, it wasn't beneficial to like the people that you love trying to provide for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like when you grow up like that, you grow up in this survival situation, but you look at people and they're just like living, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
we just want to go try it. I'm like, go try it.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna try it, okay?
Yeah.
You know, and maybe the past like maybe like the past 2-3 years, you know, of growth and just kind of breaking those ideas that like the world can be had in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't need all of it, I don't need half of it, I don't, you know what I mean, but I do feel like there is more for me to occupy than what I have allowed myself to think I could.
Yeah.
And truly believe that, you know, saying it is one thing, but like truly believing it, walking in it, risking with that attitude has been like it's been a really cool journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same for me. Is, I think the part now is trying to remain grateful even for the times that have tried me the hardest, like now being home waiting on a transplant again, still remaining grateful.
Right.
I'm being grateful for this because what I know is going to come of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, this is happening to me right now. And like I said earlier, I look around and I can be like, this is unfair, but it also sets me apart. It's also part of a testimony for people that when I get to where I'm going, that I can tell you who's experiencing what I've experienced, that you can still do whatever it is that your heart desires, and being grateful, and finding all the wonders in the worst things of your life. So
That's it.
and I'm still flesh driven at times, and where I'm like, really? You know what I'm saying? Really? This how you gonna do me? But then other times I've learned like it all plays itself out in the end.
So my question is, where did you develop this uh gratefulness in I think what most people see as a negative situation? Like, where have you always has this always been you, or have you had to develop this, or like was there a down period into an up period, or like what
Mhm.
was the
Yeah,
process?
I think I come from I'm a Southern girl through and through.
Hmm.
Like my roots are from Beaumont, Texas.
Beaumont.
Yeah, and it's like with that comes a Christian Baptist praying,
Mm.
preaching, worshiping mother.
Mm.
Okay, this is my mom.
Yes, yes.
Um, and she instilled that faith in me very young. But when you're experiencing it head on and the things that are happening and the news that I'm getting, it was a lot of pushback. Like, this is not right. Like, I don't get it. Yelling, my faith being, questioned, all of that. Um, but then as life plays itself out, God has never let me down.
Mm.
He, he's never, even in the times I've been upset at him and maybe like led to my own understanding, like he's always he's always showed up for me,
Right.
and that in itself can't be denied. And so what I try to do, instead of going through the turmoil of why I can't believe this is happening to me, I can have faith during those same times and God still show up for me. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yes, yes.
I think that happens in my growth as an individual, in my experience also, and um just your knowledge grows as you experience things. So
Totally.
it hasn't always been that way, and it literally still at times I'm still questioning things, but I'm also trying to strengthen my faith, so those lapses happen less and less, and it's much more time in between.
Uh, like I think, and we've had this conversation before, where it's like sometimes like the things that you might get mad at, or the things that like you might be frustrated with, but it's like if you look at people you're close to and like just the other people's struggles, just like the luxury, that I think we take for granted a lot is, your health. And
Yeah.
like, you know, to lose the purity of your health, right? You know, because I think that you've been healthy up until, you know, having to readjust the situation.
Mhm.
But it's like to lose that, carefreeness of your health. Whereas I don't think about my health until something goes wrong. Whereas I'm sure you have an active monitoring of your body, you know what I mean? So it's like the luxuries that I have, I always, when I meet people like you that are like, again, just super strong in different ways, I'm always like, man, like, remember that, you know, these things could be happening to you too. So I commend you on being such a great example of, like, I don't know, just being a good example of something not going your way, and again, still handling it, because before I knew, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So shout out to you.
Yeah, most stuff. Thank you. I appreciate
Finger gun still booming. So what's crazy is like, uh, it looks like you're on this side right now, right?
Yeah.
There's a good chance you could be on this side when we look at it back.
That's fine.
That's always fun. So to do like the finger gun and then like pointing off into nothing.
So I should do like this or like this. When you shoot me, should I get hit this way or get hit that?
I'm just gonna shoot. I'm gonna shoot both pure, and then hopefully one will hit you. You know. Okay. So if you, in closing,
In closing.
um, is there a message? Is there a theme? Is there a
In closing, I want to firstly say there is nothing in this world that can stop you from getting to where you want to be besides you. And it may not look like what you want it to look like, but sometimes you just have to go with the punches and keep pushing. And honestly, you won't realize how strong you actually are until you have to be it. But everything that you need is already within you. You know, you just have to find the capabilities to use that strength and use that power, because we are all equipped with it. And don't let anybody else tell you differently.
we had this talk too, and I just can't. We'll re-end it, but it's just like, in this really 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 weird way, like it is such a gift that it's like you have been pushed into this, like, go live right now. You know what I mean? Like, you've been pushed into this, like, go get it, like, right now. Whereas, like, there's something just about, like, humans that is, like, the until the homework is due, you know what I mean? There's, like, a rare group of people that do the homework as soon as they get it. But there's a good bunch of people that do it right before it's due. Study for the test the night before.
Yeah,
Whereas
for real. I've been here, done that. Been here, done that.
So it's like to have something that, like, that brings your attention, you know what I mean, that puts you in front of mind is, you know, it's a gift, you know what I mean? And I think that it's like, I feel like I know that you're using it in that way also, but I think it's like, man, like, what a cool thing, as well as sometimes a burden.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of times a burden, but but it does give you a certain power. I think, you know, I don't. This can be totally off thing, but you know, we have, as artists,
right.
I can see a lot of people that call themselves actors but won't do the work. They give themselves excuses. I gotta work, or I haven't booked, or whatever. And one thing that I've always done is, like, no matter what, is like, I'm going to do what I got to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I may get turned down. But I'm going to do what I need to do for myself because of this. It's like, it gives you this extra push. It's like people watch Jordan in this Last Dance and hate his mentality towards things, but it's like he goes and he gets it. Point blank, period.
Right.
And that's something that didn't necessarily come from some mysterious illness. That's just in him, you know? And that go get it is that live right now, give everything you got to it is like, it's a rare trait. And that's why everybody's not great.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think that's why it's so hard to be great, because you're working against a lot of stuff. Like, not just the circumstances, but you're working against yourself.
Yeah. Number one.
And depending on what you've been through, you know, yourself can be the worse than the circumstances. You know, so yeah, man, life is hard overall. You know what I mean? But I think in that same breath, life is hard, life is good.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really cool just to kind of see the two sides of everything, you know. So this has been like awesome.
Thank you for having me. It's so cool. Like, I love any opportunity to be able to, you know, tell my story, and I thank you for giving me the platform to do it here.
Totally. Well, it's lit. You know, you come back anytime. We're zooming, so like literally you're in your house. So okay, where can they find you on social?
My handle literally everywhere: Instagram, Twitter. My website is the Dawn Raven.
We had to come back because there's a question that I didn't ask that I feel like is a super important question that I ask in all the other podcasts. And I like these things to be on record. So that way, not just for the listeners, but for the person, they can come back and look at this and see, you know, just kind of how it went. So we talked about the things that have happened, right? In terms of the kidney situation, the big game versus Virginia, moving to LA and creating this new identity, and really finding yourself, and, you know, transitioning back to LA as soon as you're done back home. And then we talked about what the current stage is of your life and what we're calling this current chapter. But we then transition into, in the perfect world, in the perfect setting, what is next for Dawn?
Oh, that's okay. We did the past, we did the present, we got to do the future. I see. Wrap it up. Double down. I feel you.
Need it all.
So in a perfect world, which we know the world is not, but ideally, I will be, you know, receiving a transplant sometime in the next couple of months. That is all depending on what's going on with Corona, you know, because all doctors are all hands on deck for this crisis that we're experiencing, which I am in total agreement of. Right. But yes, to receive a transplant within the next 2 months, and recover at my parents' house for, you know, somewhere between 8 weeks to 3 months, you know, just depending, right. But fully recover here and return to LA, get back to that grind.
Totally. And then like, what happens? Like, are you writing? Do you get cast in your favorite show? How does it happen?
Yeah, I've already like claimed it and manifested it that, you know, now I will be given the platform that I've dreamt of to tell this story.
I love it.
And that would be by way of TV or film.
I love it.
You know, and if in my most perfect world, mm-hmm. I would be starring in Avatar 2.
They're doing that. I think they're doing like 2 or 3 of them. So,
you know, so yeah, that's it.
That's epic. Okay. Yeah, I feel like this is important enough to come back to, you know, and it's just kind of putting out there what you want to happen in the future, as we've talked about the great things in the past and in the present. So I thank you for coming back, making the time.
For sure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, B. You know it.
And yeah, fun times ahead.
Okay. All right. See you soon.
Peace.